Please stick around till the end of the video as I'd like to share something that I think is pretty cool with you all. Welcome back to Ninetale Hobby. In this one, we're going to tackle my very first attempt at doing non-metallic metal gold. I have to start off by saying that this is not my recipe. I got this off of Squidmar. I looked at a ton of different ones, and there were a couple of different factors in my choosing this formula. There's a ton of different ways to do non-metallic gold, but the main factors were I had the paints that he listed, and this had the fewest steps out of all the other ones. This was probably a 5-step process compared to some of the others. This is based in Snakebite leather, not the contrast paint. This is based on an old formula. If you have Army Painter, you can mix Desert Yellow and Oak Brown in equal parts, and it makes the really good base for this. So started off with that, and then the highlight is Desert Yellow. And I just kind of start off by blocking in the lights and shadows. The first shadow was Oak Brown, and just kind of generating, trying to figure out where I want to do different highlights and lowlights. And I did start off by following the box art on this piece, and that helped initially, but as I went on, actually that was a bit of a hindrance, trying to get it exactly like that. So once I kind of got everything blocked in well enough, I started kind of filling it out and trying to figure out what worked best. And then the darkest shadow is Rhinox hide. But after I start blocking everything in, I will go in and just kind of lightly feather on the edges. And you know, everybody kind of wants a magical formula where it's just like put this color, this color, this color, and you've got non-metallic metal. But it's a bit like freeform jazz. Like you just kind of have to feel it as you're going along. And it's not these large blocks of color. Once you get your contrast knocked in, it's these ever so slight featherings of the colors next to each other to get them to blend in. So yeah, you have a line of dark right next to a big line of light, but it's just this minute little blending of these coming in that really sells the effect. And as you go along in this video, you'll kind of see what I mean. But this process probably took me 3 days total, sitting down around 3 hours each to get it in. And this is where I start putting in some of the Rhinox hide, getting those dark shadows. And you'll notice I go a little bit too dark and then a little bit too light, and I just kind of jump back and forth as I'm trying to figure out the rhythm of this piece. And you'll also notice that the feet and the heads and the necklace get done at the same time, but I just kind of wanted to focus specifically on this one large part in this tutorial, just so you kind of have a better idea of how to do larger spaces. And you can do smaller spaces the exact same way. Just if you have joints or whatever, you can line those with the Rhinox hide to kind of generate some more separation. And that's what I mean about the feathering. The lights and the darks I used quite a bit, but honestly that mid-tone, that Snakebite leather, is really what kind of sold and pulled all of this together. And here I'm coming in with the second highlight, and this is white and desert yellow mixed together. in equal parts. And this is also going to be what I use for edge highlighting and everything. You could also use ice yellow on this. And I wanted to throw in the edge highlight even though I knew that my blends weren't where they were, because sometimes they can kind of help you see where you need to add and where you need to take away once you have your absolute brightest value in. I switch in between this super thin tiny detail brush and one of my larger brushes just to kind of generate different effects, because some are better at feathering than others. And you'll notice that I'll put some paint on and then it'll go away from the camera, and I'm just sticking it in my mouth because I'm a brush licker, and two, I can just put a little bit of paint down, clear it off real quick. You could also just wipe it on a paper towel, and then, you know, feathering that out a bit, getting that to blend in a bit more with the paint that's already on the model, because I don't want to overdo it. And it's a slow, deliberate process. Don't be in a hurry to rush through this. And if you mess up, if you think you've got your highlight or your shadows in the wrong place, don't worry about moving them. I actually end up I've kind of got everything where I want it, and I think it's looking pretty good, but once I have that, I've noticed that there's a strange curve that goes against the flow of the model's body. So here in a minute I actually end up just completely changing those over, which frustrated me to a little bit because I thought I was finally getting it where I wanted it, and I was, but it didn't quite look right. But the end result looked a lot better. And my paint's a little thick, doesn't come off the brush very well. Don't be afraid to use your fingers if you need to. If you get too much paint on, wipe it off real quick if you can. And I filmed what I was doing with the palette just so you could kind of see how much towards the end I just kind of jump back and forth between different colors. I don't worry about sticking solely with one thing and doing all of that color. Like, I'll just do it in small blocks, and I'll jump back and forth and won't terribly clean my brush completely off, but I'll have enough where I can not wet blend, but feather in between the colors that I need. And then this is a glaze, a really thin glaze of Demon Yellow. You just want a nice, vibrant, true yellow. And this will be what kind of generates that obvious yellow look after you have all these dark tones and all this other stuff. It'll actually help blend these together a bit more. And it's kind of what you want to do towards the end, once you're comfortable with what you've got. And then of course coming in and just doing your brightest brights to really get that punch in. And this is where I kind of looked at it when I thought I was close to done, and realized that I didn't like the way that the reflections were laying against the body, so I just started kind of moving them around. I mostly kept everything in place, had a good idea, but you know, trying to straighten them out, I went a little overboard and everything. Like I said, this was the first time doing this, so actually redoing it helped quite a bit, kind of to figure out where I went wrong initially, and my blends were definitely better the second time around. And also on this go is when I really started to realize that just that thinnest streak of Rhinox hide down the middle really sold the shadow a lot more than you know, kind of a lot of midtones, because you can see I've got that light and that dark right next to each other, but there's just just a few brush strokes that bring them together. And I think, at least from my experience so far, that is what really sells. You see it, you know, these really experienced painters come in and they're like, oh, you just lay down this color and this color and then you wiggle your brush and it looks amazing. But it really is just those few brush strokes that make it convincing or throw it out the window. So I think it's looking pretty good. At this point, I start wrapping some stuff up. I do some touch-ups on the layering to get the highlights to be complementary to the metal. And I take the cape off of the mount and put it on, make sure its light sources are correct, layer a little bit of highlights into that. And then I do the base out of some milliput. I do the Ankh in the same color scheme that I did the weathered copper in one of my first videos. And then I use the crystal tutorial that I learned from Tabletop Artist, and ended up looking pretty good. I hope this helps somebody out. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in. And yeah, thanks for watching. I wanted to share this with everybody because I thought this was a really cool idea, and I'm glad that this Kickstarter got backed. This is this company's go at you being able to have the chance to field non-objectified women soldiers in your army. They're 40k, but you could put them out as any other thing. I may mod them and do them for Infinity for some Hack Islam. They're really good deals. I printed the demo model out. It's super crispy. This is just something that I think is important to the hobby, that we can start working towards this. And maybe if this gets enough notoriety, other companies will start doing it as well. So I really recommend to go check them out. Back them if you can. The Kickstarter shuts down in a couple of days, but I believe that they're going to have a store after it's all done. So thank you for sticking around till the end of this. I'll put the link to their webpage down on the bottom, and thank you for sticking around. Thank you.